Stewardship, it's such a hard word, isn't it? It's been overlaid with money. Stewardship of creation, obviously for me, it's about care, but it's about sharing resources.
We are called to be stewards of creation. If you think about stewardship in any other sense, it's kind of standing in for the person who is really in charge. So somebody's steward was the person who looked after their business in their absence. So if we are stewards on God's behalf, then it's actually our role to not be God, but to act on God's behalf in creation. So that calls us to love creation and to work for its flourishing and to work towards its completion, I guess. So that's quite a different sense of our responsibility towards the rest of the world or to the rest of nature than any sense of having dominion over it or owning it, having it there for our consumption and disposal, which tends to be the way we like to interpret it. I don't think that has anything to do with Judeo-Christianity. I think that's just human nature, that if we can control something, we will. If we can own it, we will. If we can use it all up, well, why won't we?
Well, our stewardship of creation is fundamentally about respect. I think it's most unfortunate that certain translations of parts of Genesis talk about dominion, and it has been understood as though it were domination. And we are not to dominate creation. We are not to exploit creation. How can we do that? We are part of creation. And whether you read Genesis 1, you read Genesis 2, human beings are seen as co-workers and collaborators with God in the care of the whole of creation. So we have tended as human beings to exploit the rest of creation, take from it what we need and not give back. And I think one of the great things of modern times is that we're beginning to understand, perhaps once again, that is not how God wants it to be. God expects that we collaborate with God's self in caring for all that is, in maintaining the extraordinary complex web and fabric of creation, and seeking to give value to every part of creation. So what does that mean in practice? I think it has to mean all kinds of practical things. You know, when I discovered that those little plastic rings that you get on the top of milk bottles and things like that can get themselves around the head of a little animal and strangle them, I made sure that I jolly well get my scissors out and cut every one of them before I throw them away. And actually that it's a much better idea to have a carton of milk or a glass bottle of milk than a plastic one. And it's those little everyday decisions that make a difference and are part of our Christian commitment for how we care for creation.
Stewardship is so much more than money. But I guess our emphasis on money gives us a glimpse into how we've bought into that narrative of scarcity and anxiety about having enough stuff to get by. When I think of my children, this is a big question about what stewardship means and how we live on the earth lightly and how we ensure there is enough earth for our kids to flourish in their adulthood and their children's adulthood. And so for me, stewardship means loving the earth as my neighbour, as myself. And yes, that means thinking about my individual choices and how, you know, all that stuff that we sort of hear verbatim, recycling, reusing, but it's so much more than that. It's about changing our relationship with the earth. Earth is not something that provides, not only something that gives us resources, it's something to be in relationship with and has a lot to teach us as well. You know, Indigenous cultures get this inherently. You know, the land belongs to no one, belongs to God. But also going back to that idea of stewardship as not just something individual, but something collective. And I think, yes, it's really important what we do individually for the earth, but perhaps more important, it's about how we live collectively on the earth. And I think we have a responsibility as individuals to call the collective to account, particularly as a church. That prophetic tradition that we have right there in our scriptures and in our teaching about calling the community to account, as well as calling ourselves to account.